This podcast contains explicit content not suitable for listeners under the age of 18. Parental discretion is advised.
Today's episode is going to be about Jesse's 2-year anniversary being home, what it looks like now, how his expectations has changed, and what are the challenges he continues to face 2 years post-prison. Now that you've been home for 2 years, is it what you thought it would be like, or is it different in a good or bad way?
Honestly, 2 years out, man, if I could go back and do it all over again, I'd probably go to a halfway house. I try to find some halfway house, some program to get into. I was talking to one of my homeboys. I was locked up with, and I did some time, and he looking at getting out, and he's talking about what he should do. And he married now. He got married since we was together. And I mean, he's smart. He's a lot smarter than I. He's not even going to stay with his wife. He's like, man, I'm going into a program. I know it's gonna be better for me. So I think I would have went into a program because, you know, when you in prison, you think about getting out, and you think about the food, and you think about going places, and you think about, you know, all the things that you're not able to do while you're in there. But I mean, a lot of times, and then we'll talk about jobs and think about getting money and things like that as well. But it's just different once you get out here, especially when you've been gone for so long. So I guess that's probably my biggest, kind of reality check was I had a lot of expectations about coming out and what I was going to be doing and what I was going to be able to accomplish and how long it was going to be able to take me to accomplish these things. But then when I get out here, you know, you gotta live life too. You got other responsibilities. And then if you wind up like me going to a place where you with your family or your friends, a lot of times you'll focus on helping them instead of yourself, which continue to put you back, right? They'll have problems come up or obligations come up that's been on them, and they've been handling them just fine without you. But then when you're there, you know, those same things come up, and now they're looking at you like, okay, well, you're here now, fix them. And you ain't even had time to fix your own self right. So.
Yeah, now that part is just real regular life. But can I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah, sure.
Be more detailed in terms, because I'm sure people want to know. Be more detailed to the benefits of, you know, the halfway house in the program. Like, be more detailed about how you feel like that would have progressed you better.
Well, I feel like if I would have went into a program or a halfway house, it's like you're free, right? You're not in prison anymore, but you're not really free. You know, you're coming out of this super structured environment into a structured environment where you have people who are in positions with networks in place to be able to help you find viable employment and stable housing and help you navigate a lot of the programs and that are available to you coming home after incarcerated. But then you also got the aspect like me, for example, when I went to prison, like technology was the thing, but I think Facebook was just coming out. Like that wasn't even a thing that the everyday public was using when I went to prison. So that gives you an idea in terms of where we was at technology-wise. We were still using dial-up when I went to prison. So people did use computers and play games and stuff like that, but it was nowhere near a part of your everyday life like it is now.
Right? Well, the internet wasn't even as advanced as it is now. We have it on our phones, and when you left, we were just starting to go from regular
phone. When I went to prison, my phone was just talking text. That's it. I got text messages and I could talk on it, right? Like it wasn't so like everything is technology now. Like you can't
incorporated in everything.
You can't call and schedule a doctor's appointment without being able to do something with the computer, right? They're gonna send you some text messages, some emails. You gotta click on links and go in. All of that shit didn't exist. So you gotta think when you come out, and I had to learn all of that since I've been out. They don't teach you that in prison. And these programs, they actually have people that can help navigate that. When you go home to a family member or a friend or a girlfriend, you going home to somebody that's like, they got shit going on.
But
they got
not,
a life.
They're not equipped.
You know what
I mean?
And they not teachers.
Yeah, they're different when you've been groomed into it, and when you're trying to explain it to somebody who, who wasn't, you know what I mean? They're like, no, I don't understand when you're saying this. Like, you're speaking like a foreign language. And that, I think, even for me, was just kind of like eye-opening to the point of, okay, like, even with Jesse's case, like, he's done everything he can to try to incorporate technology and get comfortable with technology. But let's be honest, he missed that whole sailboat. He's swimming on a life raft behind us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
that's why I understand now what you're saying, because it would have provided you training.
Yeah, like, and I think they would have asked him, like, hey, what do you need help in? Whereas when he went home to people that,
not only does it provide you training, but it kind of gives you a sense of community.
Of connection, because they're helping you.
No, because you're there with people who understand, who coming through, who've been through the same similar things, right? So unless you going back to your old neighborhood, your old block, where dudes is in and out of jail and in and out of prison, and dudes is always getting into trouble, you're not going to be able to sit down and connect with regular, average, everyday people about the decade and a half you just spent in prison. There's no community, right? And then when you try to, like, I learned real quick that people out here are very they're kind of accepting of individuals who've been incarcerated and who have felons, but at the same time, they're standoffish towards us. You see what I'm saying? Like, so I chose to be completely upfront with everybody I've come across about, I'm like, look, I'm especially in situations where I'm confused or I don't really know what's going on, whether it's at work or in public, wherever. I'm just like, look, I don't really understand. And when they ask me why, I just tell them, like, look, I was incarcerated. I don't know. Right. And that kind of makes people be like, oh, okay. But at the same time, it makes people kind of standoffish from you. Right. So you're really now you're really coming from a place where you're just like, man, I can't wait to get out and do all these things. But a lot of times those things come with community and friends and family and things like that. And if you're trying to make it in an environment that was completely foreign to what you knew before going to prison and isn't anything at all like what it was for you while you were in prison, you're trying to do things the right way now. But you don't have like-minded individuals around you who understand, who have been there, who might be struggling with that same thing. It creates a sense of isolation that just really, really mess with you. Right? Like, I talked to some of the guys I did time with, man, and they was really into working out and fitness and everything like that, like I was. And it's like, man, it's not the same. Even going to the gym, right? You just don't have those like-minded individuals that you can connect with, right? And it kind of makes it hard when you out here trying to maneuver and trying to function while trying to process everything that you might have going on inside of you, right? I used to always sit in prison like, man, how these dudes get out and come back in? I just think they're just just dummies, just dumbasses who throw their life away and had no care for their life. But then I get out here and I realize that maybe not all of them is like that. Maybe some of these guys got out here and they felt like I kind of feel some days and didn't know how to process that and didn't have nobody connect with. And where does that lead you? That leads you going back to doing what's familiar just because you're lonely or you're stressed out or you feel like everything that you're doing the right way isn't working for you. And you always in a battle with yourself. And when you're doing that on your own, it gets exhausting.
Yeah. And I was going to say, one of the things that me and Jesse have talked about before is how crazy his experience is compared to those of returning people from war, from the military. You know what I mean? They have the same things. People separating from the service, getting out. That's one of the biggest things they talk about is they miss the camaraderie. They miss the community. They feel isolated and alone. And they don't connect with Jane, who just wants to go to the mall or watch a movie, because they're still living in a world that Jane don't know exist, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, they are still battling demons inside of them from what they've had to do, or what they've had to see or hear or be exposed to, you know what I'm saying? That nobody says, hey, let's help you figure out how to get back. You know what I mean? How to get back to before. No, they're just like, well, figure it out. And I think that's the
And
biggest issue.
look, and check this out, because you guys both just made me think of this, listening to both of your stories, because they are similar in this sense. Our society and civilization, and I can't talk for the world, but for the United States, is a pretty isolated kind of existence for the most part. And believe it or not, both of you just taught me this. Jesse, you being incarcerated, and Jennifer, you being in the military, you both were used to being in groups,
Mm-hmm.
believe it or not. You understand what I mean? You were used to like having, you were used to being with other people in a group setting, and that whole having each other's back and kind of talking to each other, listening to each other, and that's not the way society is. So then when you come to this society, it does make you feel so different and alone, because really our society is so isolated, because it's for a lot of people, it's you're by yourself. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And most people are on their phones versus getting outside or going to do things with people. They're more communicating, via messenger, via text. It's not phone calls or hey, how you doing no more. It's just, everybody just focused on their life, if that makes sense. And I think that that's the thing about, the military community, even prison, you know what I mean, is that you have these collective groups of people who go through the same things together and they become a family. You know what I mean? Like the
No, it's
military
more
is not family.
it's
You know what I mean?
communal. Yeah, no, it's much more communal, and
You
that's
look at,
not the way society is.
And then you come
but
out
it,
here
but
and it's
you,
so different.
but
Yes,
you look at any inner city project and the group of kids standing out there, it's the same thing, right? You connect with what's around you.
Mm-hmm.
right.
Once you learn that and you try to take yourself out of that because you're like, okay, maybe that wasn't so good. Now let me take myself out of this. Or
Let me
in
find community
Jen's
that is
and
good.
Jennifer case, or in the military member case, you
Right.
only get so much time in there before they be like, yo, you got to go.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I don't
Right.
care how good you are at your job, you got to go after a certain point.
Yeah.
So
Right.
when you in a group or in an environment with individuals that you've connected with or established bonds with or whatever have you, whether it's survival or it's for camaraderie, whatever it is, you take those individuals and then you put them in a completely different setting that they're not used to,
Mm-hmm.
that is completely foreign to them, and you take away any individuals who might be like-minded or could possibly understand what they're going through. Of course they're going to feel isolated, they're going to feel alone, they're going to be like, well, all of this stuff isn't working, and they're not going to see the progress because they're not going to be able to mark those milestones. Like for me, I've made tremendous progress out here that I don't even recognize because they're normal milestones that are part of everyday life that you might not think about or Jen might not think about, but are normal advancements in life, like managing a bank account,
Oh
right? Like
no,
I had
that's a
to
big
do
deal.
that when I got out. Those are
Yeah.
those are huge milestones for me, but for you, they're just normal milestones in everyday life and advancing, right? And then you have things that don't really that aren't really milestones for you. And for me, I'm like, man, I don't even recognize them. But at the same time, I'm progressing, right? And it could be little things like nailing a job interview, right? When I've had my first job interview, when I got out, I think that was a huge milestone for me, right? And a lot of the when I that first year I was home, I didn't really have that like go to like, okay, well, if I'm doing this and this is happening, where somebody was like, yeah, well, look, it actually is progressing. It might not look like it or feel like it, but look where you're actually going with this. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, because there's times where I'll tell Jesse, I'm just proud of him for the progress he's made. And he's like, what progress? And I'm like, but I mean, really, that's a lot. You know what I mean? Just trying to reacclimate to a world that is so vastly different than what you've been in for, you know, for the longest time. I mean, let's be honest. One of the things that me and Jesse was watching that movie 13 on Netflix, right? And they were talking about how those that don't go back to prison have an even higher suicide rate. But that's the same thing we see with people being pushed out the military, right? That don't want to leave, that want to stay, is that they don't know anything else. And a lot of them are scared, or they don't want to start over. So I've had people in the military, you know what I mean? Like places I've been stationed, people I know personally that I've worked with, that I was stationed with, that I cared about, that committed suicide. You know what I mean? Because they were terrified of just everything being cut off, that camaraderie, that community. That's what makes it so successful. Like you said, the military is groups of people. Even if you have your own job, you're still in an office, you're still working, you still have a team, you know what I mean? You still have people that you report to or report to you. So there's still that sense of community and camaraderie every day of your life, you know what I mean? And then even in Jesse's sense, it was forced upon him in some senses with prison. But at the same time, you know what I mean? He still had those connections and that community. And, you know, when you come out, it's like, it's a lot harder to connect with people who don't understand those lifestyles than you would think.
Well, you know, you meet some good people along the way, no matter what path in life you take.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care how ugly or nasty the path is, you're gonna meet some good people along the way.
Mm-hmm.
But all that being said, you just think about the environment change, the shift in the environment, right? And I was just talking to I was actually talking to my brother and my sister-in-law. We were on the phone and he had asked me a prison question. And I'd answered him. I gave him the real answer. And then they were like, well, how? And he didn't really want to accept the answer. So I gave him some real life examples of things that I witnessed firsthand. And my sister-in-law's like, she's sitting there, she's listening to these. She's like, oh my God. She's like, these stories are more horrible than my books. And I read some horrific books sometimes. And I'm just like, yeah, that's a hell of an environment to grow up in, isn't it? But then it registered to me. I'm like, I've been saying it the whole time. It's like this environment teaches you this. For those individuals who don't want that, right? It's not easy to stay out of prison for some people, right? They don't got a lot of options, right? Say they can't get into a halfway house. There are certain states that if maybe you got a gang file, if there's another gang member in that halfway house, you can't get into it. You can't get that bed. So now you got to go back to that same neighborhood. And you did what you did, right? You can't undo that. You went to prison, you paid your crimes for it, but don't everybody let that go. That ain't enough for some people. So now what? You see what I'm saying? So sometimes staying out of prison is hard for some people, depending on their situation. It makes it even harder when you take somebody and like, you know what, I'm gonna try and do it completely different, and see what happens.
And all they see is that.
But all they know is what they knew. So now they got to relearn, right? Normally they're middle-aged or close to middle age. They got to relearn life all over again. And to do that with nobody to offer any type of guidance, right? You should think about that. Imagine if you had to do life as an adult, as a normal adult, and nobody gave you any type of guidance. You didn't get taught to cook. You didn't get taught to grocery shop. You don't know how to balance a checkbook
or shave,
right? You might not know how to shave. You might not know how to do nothing.
tie a tie.
But they like,
something
yo,
simple.
get out and get to it. Not only that, but you got these obligations. You got, I want this money every month, right? I want you to show up here every month, right? You got to do all of these things with no knowledge on how to do it. Could you imagine just living a normal everyday life without any type of post-traumatic stress added to that, right? We're not going to talk about what you might have witnessed going through the things that you went through, or some of the things you may have had to do. We ain't gonna talk about none of that. Just you have to do life, and nobody's gonna teach you how to do none of it and figure it out.
Nobody's gonna help you.
That's what it's like for some dudes coming out of prison.
Please join us as we continue this conversation in our next episode.